It's another offseason that we see the Lakers add multiple names to their roster, but I really actually like what they've done this offseason. They've added players like Jackson Hayes, who I think is a young, electrifying player. He has a little bit of an emotional attachment to him there as well. But I mean, as a player, he's effective, he's young, and he's a big man presence, which is something they could use behind AD. Torian Prince was added. He's fighting for a starting spot. He could be a starter for a solid chunk, at least at the start of the year, if they until they find somebody else to take that role potentially. But they're already starting with a couple names on their injury list. Jared Vanderbilt and Hood Shafino was supposed to make his debut here shortly, but they're both listed as out for game number one. And you got a Denver team that really hasn't changed a whole lot. They added Justin Holiday, but I think they're excited to see that banner go up in the rafters here. And both these teams, have had totally polar opposite different records going in on game one. The Lakers are 1-5 straight up and against the spread in season openers since 2016. And Denver's 4-1 with their only loss actually coming to the Lakers. So, or back in 2016 was the last time that Denver lost, excuse me, but it was to the Lakers. So I think that there's always something to be said about a game one opportunity, and the team that's a little more familiar with each other is going to have a little bit of an edge. But not only that, Denver has that home field edge here. They were 44-8 at home, both in the regular season and the playoffs, and they know each other well, obviously. I have to be back in Denver, but I'm a little more optimistic about this Lakers team than I was at the start of last year when they started 2-10. So I got to be back in Denver game one and give it a little time to see how this Lakers team clicks and works together with a whole unit.
Interesting matchup to say the least here, obviously, with this repeat performance. Conference finals last year, Lakers get swept, and now they meet in the first game of the night, championship night. The home team usually gets a spark here. I'm going to stay off this game tonight. If I was going to play it, I'd take a look at the over. It opened 226.5 up to 228.5. I think both offenses will click pretty early in the season here, but I want to talk more big picture about the Nuggets while we have them on the plate here. Play against team for me. I think their season win total is worth a look to the under. Seeing it around that 52.5 last I checked. And I think there's some downside risk. Whenever you're playing these season totals, you always have to be worried about injuries. I've always said both the NFL and pro basketball, the professional sports as well, when there's star players, especially in basketball, where one or two guys like Jokic can be the entire team. There's always more downside risk to the under, so there's some intrinsic value for that reason. And I do think the Nuggets' second team this year could be one of the weakest in the league. Very little depth. Now, that's not going to affect him tonight. And that's why I'm staying off this first game of the season. But I do think the Nuggets could be a play against team, especially in fatigue situations over the next few weeks as we get deeper into the season. And I think the Nuggets under 52.5 season wins is worth a look as well. Going to play this game tonight. I take a look at the over. Lakers do have revenge from being swept in the conference finals. But I think Denver gets a spark at home. So I'm staying off the side here, but I do like the Nuggets under 52.5 season wins if you're looking at a futures play.
Yeah, the biggest name that I think everybody was really waiting to see, how does Bradley Beal work in Phoenix? Well, it looks like we may have to wait another night from what I was reading. I saw they may be a little more cautious than necessary to start, but they don't want to risk anything with their new addition in Bradley Beal that they picked up in the offseason. And on the other side of that, Golden State is going to be without Draymond Green as well. So both teams missing one of their key pieces, and Devin Booker is still listed as a game time decision. So the Suns could potentially be without two of their big pieces. When the Suns traded away Chris Paul, I don't know if they anticipated having to deal with him in game one. Obviously, they sent him to Washington, who ended up dealing him out to Golden State in that Jordan Poole deal. So, hey, opening night of the year, we got Chris Paul facing his most recent team in the opener. Now, this Phoenix team obviously looks a little bit different. We saw what Durant and Booker did in the postseason last year, but no DeAndre Ayton, no Chris Paul there either. They add Bradley Beal, but like I said, we may not see that tonight. But they actually added a couple other names there as well. Watanabe. I'm always gonna butcher that, and I apologize, but he was a huge shooter that we saw in Brooklyn last year from beyond the arc. And a Warriors team, we'll see what side again is the advantage here. A team that's more familiar with each other and accustomed to playing with each other, or a team that has a lot of potential but is going to need to quick in this game tonight to come away with this one in Golden State. No Jordan Poole enter CP3, but they do add Dario Saric and Rudy Gay, so they add some veteran presence there. And they took the final meeting last season against Phoenix after dropping the first three. So, we're already seeing a little bit of this injury bug here, but their difference between playing at home for Golden State and playing on the road last year was night and day. They were 33-8 at home, just 11-30 on the road. I would keep an eye on this line because we could see some movement here, obviously, with these injuries being announced and being talked about, and see where Booker and players like that end up. But I have to be leading Golden State here, similar to the reasons that I backed Denver in the first game. I have to wait and see what this Phoenix team does. And right now, a little more confident with Golden State at home while we wait to see if these Phoenix pieces can click together. So I'm backing the Warriors tonight.
Another great game here. We know 2 games tonight, but 2 of the best we're going to have all week here. And this late night one at 10 o'clock Eastern should be a really good one between the Suns and Warriors. Of course, Durant returning to Golden State with the Suns now. And of course, Chris Paul, his roundabout trip through DC quickly to Golden State after being dealt by Phoenix will put this game on his radar, to say the least. And I think both teams bring their A games. Early in the season, you can make an argument the offenses are a little behind in football and even basketball, but I don't think that'll be the case in this game. 2 star-studded lineups, and they're fresh. I think they're going to look to score and one-up each other on both sides of the court. And not a surprise, we've seen this total move from 230.5 up to as high as 233, even 233.5 now by mid-afternoon. We did see some money coming on Golden State from a 1.5 point opener up to -3, but I think the total is worth a look in this game. If I'm going to play it, I'm playing the over 233, even 233.5. Should be a shootout tonight in Golden State. Let's look at a free season wins totals play for you, the NBA. 2 games on the board tonight, so 4 teams will be off the board after this evening. But we have a little extra time here on the Milwaukee Bucks until Thursday. And I'm going to look at the season win total for the Bucks under 53.5, one of the biggest totals on the board. Expected to be the best team last year, they were, but I thought they overachieved by about 8 wins. But there's a few reasons why I like the under this season. First of all, I always look to play under these high totals because there's a lot of downside risk with injuries, especially in basketball, in which 1 or 2 players can basically be the entire team. And Giannis is a huge part of any team. And he does have some knee issues. Middleton's knees have bothered him over the years as well. And yes, they bring in Damian Lillard, but I think this is a team that's overvalued right now. And there could be a little bit of problems early in the season to situate everybody in the lineup. And then once again, we have so much downside risk with potential injuries to any of the key players here. And then on top of that, there's load management. We see it every year. I think it's another reason to look for these high totals to go under. And this is about as high as I get. So let's take the Bucks under 53.5 season wins. You got a couple days to play it. In the meantime, check out my best bets on a daily basis. Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. #1 on NBA sides the last 2 years combined. #1 last year in college and pro football sides. And by the way, NFL sides on a 20-9 run the past few weeks. Football, baseball, basketball. Great time to try out an all sports special. I've got special promo codes for all sports all access on my page right now. Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com.